Today, we're going to talk about how to land a TEDx talk. And that is true even if you're not 100% sure about your topic and you don't know, if you've got a bunch of ideas, a bunch of expertise, you don't have the title nailed, you don't have all these things. That's primarily what I do as a coach. People come to me and they say, hey, I have a book or a coaching program or all this expertise about this field that I do. I want to do a TEDx talk. Help me figure out what that amazing world-changing idea is. Help me articulate it very clearly, and they get booked on these like big stages. So let's talk about, there we go. Okay. And so everything that I'm talking about today applies if you want other very competitive opportunities to get your ideas out there. You want exposure for your expertise, right? If you're a coach or something where you're trying to become or like establish yourself as an expert, or if you have a purpose-driven message. So you're not trying to make money off it necessarily, but you want to create a change in the world in a direction, and you need exposure to make that happen. So this is probably mostly relevant for the more competitive opportunities, honestly. If you want to do a talk at Toastmasters and want to use body language a bit better, this is probably a little bit overkill. But the really cool thing, and the thing that I think is really interesting about the TEDx platform, is that you can do one talk, and that one talk has the impact of probably 1,000 tweets, like 1,000 other little things. So actually, it seems like it's going to be a lot of time and a lot of effort, but I think in the long run, it saves you a lot of time and effort. Okay. So this is also true, and this still works even if you feel like your niche is like very crowded. So you're like a leadership coach and you feel like everyone's a leadership coach. If it feels like everything has been said, like all the ideas are out there, there's no new ideas. I don't think that's true at all, but this still works. I've had clients say both of these things. It still works if you don't have topic ideas right now. If you're not social media famous, that is still fine. You don't have some kind of big famous book, best-selling book, PhD, you're not an award-winning whatever it is. And this strategy even works if you've never actually spoken at all. So for myself, let's do a little intro. I founded an event called TEDx Leamington Spa, which is in the West Midlands. No, I am not British. Yes, I'm Canadian. Yes, I lived in England. That's the long and short of it. I spoke at an event called TEDx Windsor. No, that's not the British Windsor. We stole all your place names. We put a Windsor in Ontario, Canada. So I spoke there, and I, as far as I know, have the best success rate in the world that I'm aware of as a coach in terms of the number of events that my clients have to apply to. So I'm aware of one competitor who's pretty big in the space, and they publicly say that their clients, they expect their clients to apply for 87 TEDx events with their strategy, with their coaching. I think that's insane. My clients typically apply for like 2 to 3. So we're talking 40 times better. So the stuff you're going to use today basically comes down to crafting a really amazing message. I'm going to show you how I do that you can apply this strategy even on your own. All right. So a lot of really smart people have trusted me before. Many or most of the Ivy Leagues, Olympians, etc. And actually, I have an adventure. I actually attempted to swim across the English Channel this past summer. That is a story for another time. And I've done a lot of endurance stuff. So I come from my upbringing was very much challenge myself in many different ways. So if any of you are into marathons or long distance hikes or cycles or whatever, if you love that mindset, we have a lot in common. So anyways, this talk here where I spoke at TEDx Windsor was my first talk. I still am not and was not an experienced speaker. I was not and still am not social media famous. I have a book now, but I didn't at the time. So this is what I used for myself. This is what I've used for my clients. And this all came from or started from my experience seeing the applications come into me as when I was running TEDx Leamington Spa. Okay, because it was the event that I started. Okay, so I would love to get a sense of where the crowd is at Okay. How many of you here have spoken or been on a podcast? You've done a guest post on someone else's blog. You've spoken on some stage before. Give me like, yes. Okay, wonderful. Type something in the chat. Let me know. Oh, and like not for a support group, like not for an artistic performance, not for an academic or like assignment where you had to as part of your job. Talking about doing something for the purposes of sharing an idea, not sharing an artistic performance in some kind of like written or spoken podcast stage form. Few of you, yes, yes, yes. Okay. Cool. Okay. So of the people that said yes, so people that said no, that's totally cool. This process will help you still. Of the people that said yes, how many of those times, because I know there's people I've talked to that have spoken like hundreds of times that still say no to this question. So how many of those times was without getting an intro to the organizer before? So you didn't know the person who was selecting you. You didn't have them reach out to you. It was not an event that you organized, and it was like just a cold application. So you reach out to them and say, I would love to speak on your stage. I would love to be in your podcast. I would love to write an article on your platform and spread my message on your platform. Has anyone done a talk where it was a totally cold application? Anybody? No? Anybody? The chat is super helpful. Like it like really helps me see where people are at. So this is good. Okay. This is very common. So most people, they think TEDx is mysterious and like this political weird thing, and there's some special requirement people are looking for, but it's actually quite rare for any speaker anywhere, any expert anywhere, to ever learn how to do like a cold pitch and frame a message in such a way that competes with other people. So when one of the like kind of as a baseline frame of the world, one of the things that I think will be really helpful for you guys is the fact that there's nothing special about getting a TEDx talk. It's not like it's different than other events in any kind of weird way. The biggest difference is it's just that you have to apply to speak, and the organizer probably doesn't know you, doesn't care about you, hasn't been introduced to you. And so a lot of people assume that the only way they can ever do any speaking at anything is to wait for somebody to reach out to them. And that's the only way speaking ever happens, because that's the only way it's happened for them in their life. But the cool thing is, and the reason why I say this is valuable for anybody, even if they never do a TEDx talk ever, is I believe once you learn how to frame a message in this way that I'm going to teach you, that works for TEDx, yes, it will also work for getting the same expertise, the same message out to any platform. Like what if you pitched 100 podcasts and all of a sudden you were a guest on 100 podcasts and you got the customers and the credibility and the impact that came from sharing your message on those 100 podcasts? Like you would reach a lot of people. And then from doing that pitch, you read the pitch once and have like a VA just blitz it out. All of a sudden, then you start to get more of the organic incoming from that exposure as well. So I think this is a really cool skill worth learning. I call it selling your message as opposed to presenting your message once you're on stage. And I think it's really, it's very, it's, as we saw in the chat, like no one's done it before. Everyone's waiting, like had an introduction of some kind where someone just say, hey, like come speak. But I think this is a really powerful tool that you can use to grow your business in kind of a profit way and also genuinely like help the world as well. Okay. So in terms of doing that, sometimes, I don't know if some of you have ever thought of doing a TEDx talk or thought about what the idea would be. What I've found is that most people, like almost everybody in the world, is stuck on one of these things. So they're kind of thinking like, what is the angle that I share that sets me apart, right? There's a lot of leadership coaches. What's the angle I take on leadership that's unique to me? Sometimes people they have a ton of ideas. They've got all the books and all the coaching methodologies that they do and all the workshops, and there's like volume, so much stuff. What's the best? They've applied once or twice and got turned down, and they think like, oh, it's political, or it's just who you know, or there's like some weird scam going on that I'm not a part of or I don't know about. So sometimes they like get disheartened to start making up stories about why they got turned down, most of which are false. Or sometimes people have very, very, very niche expertise, like they're an accountant or something like that, and they don't know exactly what the best way is to shape a message for a very broad audience. They either make the mistake of going way too narrow or they go way too broad. Anyways, so of those things, do any of those resonate with you? I'd like to know just from you. In that you can hop in the chat and do this. Or wonderful. Sonal, I don't know. I'm not sure how I pronounce your name.
Yeah.
Give me a sense of what you feel your biggest barriers for you.
I think it's how to stand out from the crowd, how you're different. Why would they listen to you? Your key message, because it could be very similar to what everybody else is saying or doing. So you just want to stand out a little.
Cool. Okay. Perfect. I'm going to solve that for you. 2. Okay, wonderful. I'm going to show you how to do that with, okay, so I have this like hat that I just got made a couple weeks ago, right? Substance before style. I'm going to show you how to do it with how to stand out with substance, and then add the metaphors and the stories or whatever on top as well. But anyways, and it turns out this works really, really, really well for TEDx stuff. So, okay, there is a methodology that I apply to ideation and topic development that I call reverse feedback. So this is the best answer I've found to finding a new, impactful, specific idea, angle, hook that gets you booked and helps you know the exact words that you should use in conversations with organizers, on podcasts, in the talk on stage, in the title, things like that, that resonate with the people you're sharing it with, the audience, the organizers, whatever. To find this out in a totally unbiased way that's not dependent on my opinion, your opinion, right? Because you don't want to, if you ask like your neighbor, your neighbor is biased and your mom's biased and your existing clients for sure are, because they've already hired you, and your friends are, and this group is because everybody in this group wants to probably like keep the peace a little bit. Nobody here wants to offend too many other people that much. So unbiased way. Okay. So we need to contrast this to most feedback, or what most people are trying to get when they develop a topic, or think about what of the many topics they could share, which topic has the most promise. All right, so they're looking for like, oh, I like this idea so much. This is so true. This is amazing. This is important. A lot of likes, a lot of comments, a lot of applause, etc. Okay. The problem is that good feedback. So think about like, okay, so if I shared a very strong opinion about why everybody should eat only vegan all the time, and I posted that on social media, who are the people that are the most likely to agree the strongest, to share it, to like it, to comment, leave massive comments sharing like, this is so good, this is so important. Who's going to comment on my vegan thing? It's going to be people that are already vegan, right? If you share a political viewpoint, people that are going to like and comment the most are going to be people that already support that political viewpoint, right? So in the same way, if you share a viewpoint about a leadership strategy, or a thought about leadership or goal setting or productivity or what have you, mental health, the people that are going to give you the most good feedback are people that already agree with that viewpoint, right? So if you follow good feedback, it can very quickly point you down this path of very common ideas that everybody already agrees with. And you think like, yeah, this is the shit, right? Or they just like your style. So everybody's here have seen, I mean, I'm sure motivational speakers, and they have just amazing pizzazz, or they're just very emotional and they have amazing style. And, it's common. It's polite to show appreciation for people after they've done something, right? And someone goes, you were such a good speaker. You were so dynamic. Like, that was great. Or, something like that, right? So you don't want to, again, be pointed in the path of, this is a really good message, right? But it's only because of the style elements. Or, there we go. Did I miss one? Okay, here we go. So what this leads to is, or what I found this leads to is, people that have had a lot of this good feedback, they come to me and they go, yeah, I've got like a lot of good ideas. I'm a great speaker. People love my stuff, but I'm still not sure if I really have something that's good. So it's like this surface level feedback, right? So, okay, so you have safe, common ideas. And really what this leads to is having the TEDx talk on your vision board for years and years and years. And you're going in this path and it's never going anywhere. It's a futile endeavor to keep going. And so the more you keep going down this path of following good feedback for everything, the more you actually get farther and farther and farther away, and you get more and more and more discouraged. So I want to draw an analogy of like what this is like. Anybody here, so you sell like a product or service? What do you guys do for business? Yeah, any kind. What's your what do you sell? Educational. Okay, so Danielle, imagine you were making a new educational service product, a new course on something, right? And your best friend in the world said, this is such a good brand new product or service idea. This is amazing. This is so good. And your family was like, this is so good. And all your friends were like, this is such a good business idea. Should you invest a bunch of time in creating and launching this thing?
Yes.
Right.
Also, even if they said, don't do it, you should still do it.
Okay. So I'm gonna contrast this with like a different kind of thing, right? So like, imagine instead of that, you had a few other people, and they said, holy crap, Danielle, are you doing this? Here's $100. Can I prepay for access to this? And they didn't tell you it was good. They just said, I want this. Here's money. Can I have it? Like, which types of feedback are more informative of whether or not there will be customers? Your mom saying this is great, or a customer saying, holy crap, can I prepay? Like, I want to buy this now, like right now. Can I get it? Can I get it now?
Second one, they
right. It's because it's the real investment. It's not someone saying like, oh, this is great, right? It's someone saying, I'm investing right now. Here is cash, right? So they're making a financial investment. The problem with an idea, right? TEDx, how do you measure? You can't say like, hey, pay me money and I'll tell you my idea, right? Because that's not how the marketplace works. You get booked as a speaker, you're not getting paid. Somebody listens to your talk, they're not paying you to listen to your talk on YouTube, and they're not paying money to be impacted and take action from your talk. But we can use the same process, the same thinking. So, oh crap. Did I get my slides? Oh, shoot. Okay. Oh, I'm really, oh, dang. I must have copied and pasted in the wrong spot. Okay. No, I can fix this. I must have accidentally deleted a slide here. Okay. So I'm going to freestyle. So what I have my clients do, instead of saying, tell me an idea, and let's try to get a bunch of people saying, oh, this is amazing, this is so good. Instead, I have them state an idea and a belief, and we want people to say, whoa, you are wrong. That is incorrect. That will never work. That's wrong for these, like reason 1, reason 2, reason 3, right? And this seems like it's not the thing you want, right? It seems like if you had a new approach for mental health or well-being, right? Well-being is perfect because like it's something that everybody kind of has heard a little bit about. If you had a new idea, a topic about well-being, right? You would think you'd want a bunch of people saying, oh, this is amazing, Danielle. Well, you actually want a bunch of people saying, whoa, that's not right, because it means they don't already agree with you, as in it's not common knowledge, right? They haven't already implemented it in their life. And when they disagree with you, they're telling you like, okay, here's the evidence that I would need to change my viewpoint on this. You need to prove to me A, B, and C, right? And the really cool thing, back to our analogy about investment, financial investment, when someone takes the time to type out a huge paragraph like this long, telling you why you're full of crap, it means they actually care about the idea, right? Danielle, if you had something and you're like, hey, I really think my amazing new thing is that everybody should sleep with 1 raisin in their bed because it'll lower blood pressure in the next 30 years. Everyone's going to be like, this chick's insane. Like, but they're not going to care. They're not going to take time to tell you. But if your thing was like, okay, everybody should always wake up at 3 a.m, people are going to have some really strong feelings about why that's not going to work. And that's probably not your thing, right? But the act of disagreement and taking the time to invest intellectually shows you this thing resonates with people, right? And it's totally unbiased because people like to keep the peace, especially in online communities. So to have them take the time out of their day intentionally to say like to break social convention a little bit is a very good test. So okay, I'm going to share some examples with you guys of this in action. Okay, so anybody seen this talk by a guy named Simon Sinek? TEDx talk? Am I the only one? Okay, this is a great talk. He repeats his phrase, people don't buy what you do, they buy why you do it, throughout this talk. It's one of the most popular TEDx talks actually of all time. And it was filmed in like, early 2000s or 2009 or something. Okay, so another example, Nike, just do it. What are they saying? Doesn't matter about your plan or your gear and your training, just take action, like without whatever. So Nike's stance is that most people think that planning is the best way to achieve a goal, but at Nike, we believe in action first. If you were to kind of rephrase the just do it in longer terms. Who's read the book, The Subtle Art of Not Giving a Bleep? Mark Manson. Anybody? Partly. Okay. Anyway, and you can all see it's got 90,000 Amazon reviews. A lot of people like this book. And you can read it from the concept, from the title. I kind of summarize it here. Like most self-help gurus say that you should have passion for life and care about things. And his whole premise of the book is that you should not care about some things at certain times, basically. So all of these statements, all the concepts from these, the TED Talk and the Nike thing and Mark Manson's book, and there's like multiple examples that I can give of this. They would all have been met with reverse feedback. Like, don't care about things, don't give a fuck about things. People are going to say like, whoa, like you should have passion for life, right? People would push back on Nike if they said, hey, like, don't plan, don't whatever, just go do it. Kind of be reckless a little bit, right? It would have been met with discomfort, right? People talk about you should find your why. This is Simon Sinek's concept, actually. Like, find your why, your purpose. Like, tell people your why all the time. This is tell people your beliefs drive action, which drives whatever. What this is like Gandhi or something like that, right? So that's true, but the most powerful beliefs you can tell somebody are beliefs they would actually disagree with, that can still help them in their life. So somebody, if you really found out, Danielle, that people could transform their health and well-being by waking up at 3 a.m, and you said, like, actually there's a book called like the 5 a.m. There's a 5 a.m. club or the 4 a.m. club. And it gets attention because people go, wait a second, I thought I was supposed to get a good night's sleep and, wake up at 7:30 or 8 o'clock, like a sensible person. And this insane person is saying, no, you can change your life and make it better by getting way less sleep, waking up at an insane time, giving up all your social stuff, because you're not staying up until midnight if you're waking up at 5 for sure. So really, you want to make people extremely uncomfortable, but be right about your assertion. Okay. So anyways, so these would have been some of the common objections to those ideas I mentioned before. Okay. So I saw some nods and stuff with the reverse feedback thing. I'd like to go through an example of like how you would actually do this, and then put one of you on the hot seat if there's any brave volunteers, and we can kind of go do this live. So this is how you would actually do this for literally any field in the world. This is how I know, like back to the questions before of, well, how do I say something new? How do I stand out? The way you stand out is by recognizing that for any field in the world, mental health, leadership, education stuff, there's a lot of viewpoints that you have because of your expertise that you have noticed in your frame of the world, right? That other people just don't notice. There's not one new belief for any given field. There's many, and the way that you do that, and the way that I know that you can stand out, right, at any given point in time, no matter how many people there are sharing messages about the field, is by getting actual pushback from people, because that pushback tells you that they don't already agree with it, that it is new, and that people resonate with it. So this is how you do it. So step one is you want to generate possible beliefs that might be new. These are hypotheses, these are guesses, they're untested. So here's the format that I use with coaching clients. And I have them generate like 10 to 20 of these statements for their field. All right. Most people, most people think, that's a typo. Most people think blank, so some myth or mistake, is the best way to achieve well-being, education, whatever it is. So most people believe that getting a good night's sleep, sleeping 8 hours a day is the best way to achieve well-being. But I believe that there's a different mindset or a different way of viewing the world that's actually better, right? So if you were promoting the vegan diet, you might say, well, most people think that eating a balanced diet of both animal products and vegetable products is that actually, a balanced diet is a good diet. And that's the best way to achieve kind of optimal health. But I believe that human beings are not meant to digest meat, and we literally should only ever have plant products. Right? Someone on the carnivore diet would say the exact opposite. They would say most people think you should have a balanced diet, and that vegetables are healthy for you, but is the best, and they think that's the best way to achieve optimal health. But I believe that animals put out like little chemicals to protect themselves, and if you have even one little piece of broccoli, that's going to mess up your system for way too long. So the only way to heal yourself permanently is with a full carnivore diet, right? So you guys can see how you would apply this to whatever field. Okay, next step 2. So maybe you state this like this. Is an example. This is Simon Sinek, by the way. Right? So people don't buy what you do, they buy why you do it. This is a great talk. You guys should all watch Simon Sinek's talk, by the way. So then state 2, the 2 is you state the I believe part as just like fact. So people don't buy what you do, they buy why you do it, or you should only ever eat animal products, no vegetables, no fruit ever, for instance, right? Wake up at 5 a.m. is an example of just state the thing that you expect to get pushback. Then you want to see if anybody actually disagrees. You're not going to say, pretend like somebody else disagrees and do this as a thought exercise, because you're missing out on so much of the power of this exercise. You want to actually state a thought that you have or belief you have. And you want people to, if people ignore you or they say, oh yeah, you're totally right, you failed. This test failed. You found something that everybody already knows. They may not act on it to your satisfaction, but they know it because they've told you they agree with you, right? So you want people to disagree. Pineapple is delicious on pizza. You want people to say, no, you're wrong, okay? So a successful answer here is like, that's stupid. This will never work because of X, right? You cannot wake up you can't have all vegan because where do you get your protein from? You can't have all carnivore because there's certain vegetables that only animals have. You can't wake up at 5 a.m. because you'll have no social life. You have to go to bed at 8. So this is success. And then over time, you get a lot of objections. And then what I do with clients is I sit down with them and we look at all the objections that somebody had to their main point. And then we alter the point, we alter the main message to address these objections head on, or we reshape the scope of it a little bit, basically to make the objections irrelevant. And I can share an example of how I did that with my talk in a second. So anyways, this example is not relevant because you guys haven't seen this talk, but anyway, I'll take a pause here. Does anyone have any questions about this process?
Hey guys, anyone have any questions just about, I was just thinking myself actually, because I would love to get Byron and Bianca one time to do a TEDx talk. I think that would be pretty cool. And I was just thinking about the different ways we could, reverse it to make, people interested in the talk and so on. Just thoughts.
So the cool thing about this is like you're seeing them interested in the idea when it's like 3 sentences, right? It's very very short. So you don't have to write an entire talk first before you find out whether or not it resonates. The idea resonates. And then all of a sudden you have so much more confidence to go, oh, this is going to work. Like I'm going to apply and they're going to love this. And so if you get rejected maybe one time, you're not phased because this resonates. This is new, right? It's just a matter of maybe applying for 2 more events at this point, right? And then writing your talk is a lot more fun too, because I would only ever suggest anybody write a talk after they get booked, because for a number of reasons, but also this is it's more fun to know that you got booked, to know there's an event coming up that you're speaking at for sure. You're doing a TEDx talk, and then there's no more writer's block. So people are not, typing speed is not the problem for TEDx talks. This is not the barrier that people are experiencing. And I also have met almost nobody who's applied for just so many events and they just gotten rejected that many times before they come to somebody like me anyways. Mostly it's a problem of people are following good feedback. They know in the back of their head, this is all bullshit feedback I'm getting, but they don't know a more reliable way to make sure their idea is on the right track. And they have no confidence in the idea really, because their brain is truthfully telling them this good feedback could still mean they're just being nice. This is still too common, right? And so their brain is stopping them from wasting time in typing up a whole talk and whatever else. And it's only basically the insane that go forward and apply to a bunch of events without going through this process.
What's the best one one of your clients have come up with with the reverse feedback, or how have they titled it? Would you say just an example?
So I mean, I have there's one part of it is how it's phrased here, and then what often happens is it changes after we change how we think about the idea after we run some tests. So for instance, I have one client right now who she came to me and says, hey, I have this like concept about, she had this process where she imagined that God was her like job, like her employer, and that she had to do like quarterly reports, and like she treated the relationship like a job, like an employer-employee relationship, which meant that, you know, if I don't fulfill the goals that I've set for myself, like I might get fired or I might get a demotion or something like that next quarter. Anyway, so she thought that this was like this crazy thing that nobody else in the world did. And I assumed the same thing too. We did this, we did this test. We did another couple of tests, which are similar in thinking. But we basically found out that a lot of people in the world that she talked to have very similar processes where they use these like whimsical, magical beliefs to help them with their life in some way, but nobody talks about it. So we had to change how that worked. But anyways, for titles, I have a different process. I have a YouTube video I'll publish shortly. Basically, I just nerded out and did a scrape of the entire TEDx YouTube channel, like 100,000 videos, because I wanted to see if there was patterns in the title that led to more views. Right. And so like the title is a different thing, because for expressing this idea, when you apply for a TEDx event, you're going to apply with a synopsis. They're not going to book you on a title. They're going to say, give us more detail.
Mm-hmm.
Right. So it's like anything you come up with for the pitch is to convince the organizer that your thing is clear, but also very, very new. But often like the best titles are like the psychology of goal setting, like something that's like very basic, but just the numbers say, actually the biggest thing for titles is the first 3 words. So the skill of, the psychology of, what they don't tell you about X. Like these formats work really, like I could just tell you they just get more views than others. Why they do, I don't really care. All I know is just the data shows this, right? So for titles, mostly I tell my clients, not like, don't get fancy. Here's a spreadsheet. There's like, here's the top 30 or 40 best 3-word title formats that just get way more views than the rest.
Mm-hmm.
Use these. Don't get fancy, just use these. I didn't know this like a year or 2 ago. And so there's some titles that I think are like, maybe they're clever, but I don't know if they would have done better if I would have just followed the data at that point versus like, you know, I came up with one that was this one woman spoke at the event that I ran, and the title was why my autistic children don't need a cure. And I mean, the videos from that event got like tons and tons of views. But I don't know if it was because of clever titles or some other factor. So yeah, it's like it's clever, but it's, yeah, the title, the topic thing is a lot more strategic. Titles are like, hey, here's a spreadsheet, like make it
formula
3 words and that's it, right? Yeah. There's a couple of weird, cool benefits that I think you guys have caught on to before. You're gonna get this reaction like, wow, you thought of this from every angle. Like you're such an expert, and it's because other people have other viewpoints on the world and they've thought about it and all the what's wrong with it from every angle, and you've now had to rethink about your viewpoint from their worldview, and so you can like strengthen and reshape the idea. That's a really cool thing. So it's kind of like it's like the pre-sales analogy, and you know for sure that they don't already believe it, but there's also 2 other lesser known. Is that you use their objections at their actual words to build the content, and you get very, very, very confident that the message is going to work because you just had to justify it a lot. It's like, you know, if you were training for a sport, if you just done this drill again and again and again and again and again and again, when it comes to game time, you're just like used to it. It's not a huge deal for you because you've just done it a lot. So other perks I would love to do. Are there any guinea pigs that we could just go through this process and like do it real quick? At least go through the first part. Maybe we can't get real disagreement because we all know that we're we want the best for each other. We're not the wrath of strangers necessarily, but are there any?
Can someone volunteer for me?
Are there any volunteers
to come on and trial out the step-by-step process?
Come on, someone be
Go
brave.
on. I will.
Yes or no?
I haven't got my camera on, sorry.
Sonna will do it with you,
We're
right?
gonna start with. Okay, so first, can you give me a sense of? Remind me of your field. What field are you in?
So I do coaching. I help females fulfill their potential in their careers, in particular, help them change careers into the technology industry because there's not enough females in IT.
Cool. Okay. So basically like the people you serve are people that are like, I'm a woman, I work in a non-tech field. I really want, like, I just love computers. I really want to go into tech for whatever reason. And you're going to help me figure out all like the whole way. Right. Cool. So
to earn more, all that kind of thing. Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. So think about your clients.
Okay.
Or advice that your competitors give the general public or your clients or whoever. What's something that pisses you off that they tell your clients, like that they tell the public to do? Or what's a mistake in thinking that your clients are making when they come to you? And they're like, most of my clients, they think blah is going to really help them get a job in STEM, or they think that STEM companies are looking for blah. And you think that's completely wrong. Actually, it's
They think that you need a degree, or you need some sort of some formal qualification or something, but actually there's lots of openings that you can go to.
Are they okay? And so they're not like being the janitor. They're like tech jobs in IT, not food service or something like that.
Yeah, and they don't know what's available to them. People just aren't aware.
Got it. Okay. So I like, in terms of this process, I don't love to go with I love to avoid words like aware, important. Like most people don't think mental health is important. I think it's important, right? Because the reality is like you're kind of stressing a value like you should have more than me, and I have more than you, and it's really hard to like clarify that.
Right.
The levels are different. Same with aware, like it's you can solve the awareness problem by like publishing just a gigantic list of every tech job ever, like, and just blitz it, and that solves the awareness problem for sure. But I think you can have like really a good message here around the needed degree thing. So most people think you need a tech degree in order to get a degree in IT. But I believe you actually don't need to have a technical scientific degree to get there, which is cool. People will want to believe that as well.
Sorry, they think you need coding as a must, and it's not all about coding. There is a lot of that still, unbelievably.
Right. And so you could add this too, like it doesn't, maybe you can test this as like, but maybe it's, you don't need to know coding to get a degree or to get a job in tech, or you don't need, there's two you probably have like many possibilities that you could share here, and there's no like one, oh, this is the right one, this is the wrong one. Like they could all be ones. You could have 5 TEDx talks if you wanted to, right? Through this process, you would just follow the same trajectory for every single one. Okay, so if we go into step 2 here, so your thing, it would be, you don't need to have a degree in a technical degree to get a job, to get a great job in IT, right? Yeah. Okay, so what you would actually do is just post that statement verbatim on social media. So you would say something like, hey guys, I was, one of the things that pisses me off is that people think that you need to have a technical degree in, whatever, to get a great job in IT. The reality is you actually don't. Period. Enter. Let it be. Okay. Right. And what a failure of this test would be a bunch of people saying, oh yeah, you're totally right. Right. And just a lot of that. And what you actually want is some idiot who's like, no, of course you do. Like, of course you do because of these reasons. Or you want your clients to say, or your leads to say, well, hold on a second. Like, but I'm making up objections here, right? But like, they might say something like, well, but I saw a requirements list from, whatever that said that you need a degree in blah, blah, blah to get this job position, right? So you'd want to test to make sure that people don't already accept this as like just obvious fact. The next thing so that's this part, right? You're actually going to like make a summary of the main objections, right? Then use those main objections in your content. So maybe it's like, oh, well, I saw a job description like this, whatever it is. The way I would build the message around this, by the way, is you're never going to see a TEDx event in the world ever that's just a bunch of women that want to get jobs in tech, right? There's going to be events where people have jobs, they don't want to change jobs, and they're perfectly satisfied with that, right? But at the same time, you don't want to just abandon your expertise and start to say like, oh, let's talk instead about how to be successful. Because that's total bullshit. The measure of success is different for everybody. So therefore, it's very difficult to establish like who has more credibility and success or not. So you have to end up being like Richard Branson to be able to get books talking about that, right? You have to be so successful that you're a celebrity and they want to just meet, that the organizers want to meet you and that they don't care what you talk about. So you want to keep this message in your field. And the way that you make that more generalized so that you get booked and it's relevant for other people, you get booked, right? If you're speaking at an event that's not a bunch of women that are in IT, is you link that very specific belief to a broader theme that other people experience that same assumption in their life. So this is where you'd have to get into brainstorming possible themes of how you could test this. So like, it could be what was the thought process for your clients, and then you kind of draw the part like larger themes. Like I'm sure there's like other places in life where people assume that the requirements are one thing and they just never like test them or like explore them. How could that unlock other opportunities for people and solve inequality and yada yada yada. And then what I like to do with the idea to make it more interesting, and rather than a bunch of stories about women in tech and tech people and tech quotes and tech stuff, is you almost think about like what the metaphor is for the idea, and then share stories from all different fields about that. So okay, for instance, I'll give you an example of the talk that I did. So the talk that I did when I did the disagreement test, or I did this process, I was encouraging people, would-be creators, to make something that looked really ugly as a way to get early feedback from like friends and stuff. So that, when something doesn't look very good, people assume that they can give feedback on what it actually is, because they can see very clearly that it looks like crap. Asking for feedback on what the aesthetic is, just the function of it. And a lot of people, the common objection I got from people was that, hey, like, nobody is ever going to buy an author's second book if the first book was like actually intentionally bad, yada, yada, yada. I had to reframe the idea to clarify. I just reduced my scope to clarify this was only how you started, not how you finished, right? So the title that I chose that was clever, it wasn't very effective, but was clever, was Start With Your Worst, Create Your Best. Anyways, so the analogy was start with something very small and ugly and whatever else as an intentional way to make it better in the long run. And that, if you think about analogies there, one analogy that has nothing to do with humans making things is how seeds work, right? So a seed is a really crappy looking tree, but it's like you have to use a seed. And that's the best way to create a tree in the end, because the fact that it's a seed allows the tree and the roots and whatever else to like adapt to the environment that it's in. You can plant a seed on a cliff and the roots will shape to the cliff, right? And so it allows the organism to survive in the environment in the same way that if you create something and you've already decided all the details about it, it doesn't allow you to get feedback on it, right? So I shared that story of how trees work in my talk to show it, to flesh it out and show people like this idea applies in a broader spectrum. So like the way that you would take, and this is like, part of this is just a brainstorming process that I do with clients. It does take a while sometimes to figure out like the analogy of the idea, but this is how you would take that specific thought around requirements for women that want to get into like tech jobs and make it something that everybody goes, oh, I get how that thing applies to my life too, even though I don't want a job in tech and I'm not a woman. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
Cool. Thank you for your bravery.
Thank you, Sonal. Superstar. Thank you.
Cool. Okay. So, that is all I had for you guys today. And we are pretty much right on time too. Are there any other closing questions before we wrap? By the way, here's my email address if anybody wants to get in touch or has follow-up questions on things.
Ryan, what was the name of your book as well?
Oh, yeah. So I mentioned,
I was looking for it. Oh, yeah. There we go.
Yeah, it's called Sell Your Message: How to Get Exposure in a Noisy World.
Love it.
And this book, so there's like one, the process we talked about today, I have it in the book as the disagreement test. So there's one section on beliefs, like there's a bunch of brainstorming questions on that you can ask yourself, similar to like the process we went through. There's like 7 or 8 of them that you can use to generate these belief shifts. There's a chapter on the disagreement test that talks about how you actually do this test and the benefits of it and whatever else. And there's also a few other tests as well that I have it explains it all fully, that I have my clients do. And like all of this really helps them flesh out the idea. They get booked on bigger stages much sooner, and they get their message out as well. So they get the satisfaction of having an impact with the world. So really there's nothing in there whatsoever about what you do on stage and vocal tonality and like all that stuff. Like, this is not a public speaking book. This is not a book about, grammar and walking around on making great slides or networking or all. It's just on selling your message, right? So just on how do you connect with a podcast host, an event organizer, and say, hey, here are the details about my message, about my ideas that are going to get you to say, yes, please come on our event podcast platform, whatever. So the really cool thing is you do this once, and you can copy and paste this and blast it to a bunch of people. And once you have the credibility of a TEDx talk, it's filmed. You're a TEDx speaker forever, right? So then you can really, you only have to do like cold outreach stuff once or twice in your entire life. And then you leverage that opportunity and you can keep leveraging it forever. People ask about my TEDx talk like years later. And so I think the same thing is really valuable for others, which is why I wrote this book and came on today.